Hello, I'm Melody. This slideshow discusses the general introduction of natural history in Ontario. Ontario is Canada's second largest province, covering more than 1 million square kilometers, an area larger than France and Spain combined. Ontario's more than 250,000 lakes contain about one-fifth of the world's fresh water. There are 5 major physiographic regions, or ecological regions in Ontario, which include the tundra zone up north, Hudson Bay lowlands surrounding the Hudson Bay, boreal forest lying on Canadian Shield, Great Lakes St. Lawrence region including Algonquin Park, and Carolinian region, which is the most southern part of Ontario. The reason of Ontario having different landscapes could be traced back to 12,000 years ago. According to David Bowen, in his scholarly article named Physical Geography of Ontario, he writes, all of Ontario underwent a set of major glacial advances and retreats during the last major glacial state up to 12,000 years BP. Northern parts of the province were still covered with ice 8,000 years BP, and the retreating ice sheet filled a series of large meltwater lakes in Ontario. Together, glaciation and post-glacial deposition largely account for the present landscape of the province. The ice sheets sculpted or rounded the land and generally reduced its elevation, removed original topsoils, and exposed the bedrock. Deposits laid down by glacial streams and lakes have strongly influenced soil development and, consequently, the composition of present-day forests. For example, the Tyrrell Sea left behind huge deposits of clay and sand in the Hudson Bay lowland region, which built habitats for animals and plants in this region. Most of Ontario's climate can be described as humid continental, with the notable exception of areas under the influence of Hudson Bay, which have a more maritime character. In general, Ontario's climate is affected by 3 major air sources: cold dry polar air from the north, the dominant factor during the winter months, Pacific polar air passing over the western prairies, and warm, moist subtropical air from the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. The effect of these major airflows on temperature and precipitation depends on latitude, on proximity to major water bodies, and to a limited extent on terrain relief. Other than the general climate of Ontario, there are 5 different ecological regions due to their different landscapes, latitude, and longitude. They all have different average temperatures year-round. They also have different soil types and landscapes, different degree of precipitation. And all these various abiotic factors have allowed to have different kinds of animals and plants living in each region. Some species travel across these regions in their lifetime, but other species only nest and stay in one physiographic region. Therefore, naturalists call these unique species indicator species of a region. For example, Arctic fox is an indicator species for tundra zone. Now we're going to shift our attention to biodiversity of Ontario. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity or biological diversity is the variety of life on Earth, includes all living things and the ways they interact with each other and their environment. Species diversity refers to all of the different types of species found in a certain habitat, ecosystem, or region. Ecosystem diversity is the variety of different ecosystems within a larger region. Genetic diversity. Genes are the building blocks that create species. For example, genes determine your hair and eye color. The genetic difference among individuals within a species are called genetic diversity. Species with greater genetic diversity can more early adapt to a changing environment over time. Why is biodiversity important? All species, including humans, depend on each other to survive. Loss of biodiversity leads to the loss of services that nature provides that are essential to the functioning of our society economy. We depend on biodiverse ecosystem for materials such as food, fuels, and fibers, regulating climate, waste, and pollination, supporting processes such as water purification and nutrient cycling, opportunities for enjoyment of beautiful outdoors. On the website of Ontario Biodiversity Council, it says, Ontario's 30,000 known species live in interconnected ecosystems that have evolved over thousands of years. It is a truly amazing wealth of life, from tiny fungi to vast northern forests, from piping plovers to polar bears. The number of people on Earth increases every year. This growing population means we take up more space and use more natural resources to feed, clothe, and house ourselves. These increased demands on our natural resources are threatening biodiversity in Ontario. Ontario's biodiversity strategies identifies 5 major threats: pollution, climate change, habitat change, invasive species, and unsustainable use of resources. Each of these threats put pressures on our biological resources and can lead to changes in the number and types of species and ecosystems present in Ontario. Species and ecosystem may be exposed to more than one of these threats at the same time. The increasing number of species at risk is a clear sign that our biodiversity is being threatened. Apparently, all these threats of biodiversity in Ontario are related to human activities. Pollution and climate change are the result of high demands on the planet's natural resources. Habitat change is a reflection of the logging industry related to humans' pursuit of the economic growth. Invasive species are introduced by humans or animals when they travel. Unsustainable uses of resources are the reflections of the unsustainable lifestyle of human beings. Considering all the human activities and threats to biodiversity, we need to ask, in the epoch of the Anthropocene, how do we perceive our relationship with other species? And for more information, please check out the podcast below, which I will interview the naturalist from Ontario, Michael Runs, to give you more information about the loss of biodiversity in Ontario.